here we go.
Yeah, hi, Mark Garland from Toronto. Jim, I'm surprised to hear that destination dispatch doesn't reduce the number of cars. I would think that some of the owners would have that conception. Could you just briefly explain that one more time?
I thought I explained it, but I'll go over it one more time. It's not that the morning up peak, yes, you have more dispatches. It's the evening out peak. If you eliminate one car and the elevator is designed properly, you're not going to be able to handle the evening out peak with one reduced car. You're going to strand people on the upper floor. The key to the evening out peak is the fact that you make a lot more dispatches than the evening 5-minute peak. Without the extra car, you can't make that many dispatches. That explain it?
Yeah, it's just,
yeah. Okay.
Any other questions? Over there.
Rami Balas from Israel. Question for Mr. Fortune. You said that many people forget the destination. Did you think about introducing a small ticket for the people that go, that you prevent this problem? That you will show the destination car?
You're saying, why do we not show the destination in the car or on the hall lanterns?
No, I meant that you said that many people forget the destination number and they come back. So did you think about introducing a small ticket that at the pole, they will get the ticket and they will hold it in their hand and they will know which car to go?
That's a real problem. I agree with you. That's why we were talking about having an iPhone or a display for a portable device that you would carry with you. I think that's a good idea. It's probably coming. I don't know if anybody has an elevator app yet, but that's probably what it would be.
Do we have any other question in the room? One more from Toronto.
So what would the shortest building that you would do destination dispatch? Or smaller building? Talk about a 4 to 10 story building.
That's a good question. It depends whether it's under elevated or not. There's a couple of, that's one disadvantage or one criticism we have of the typical Asian market is they like 4-car groups. We hate 4-car groups. Don't think they're very efficient. So when Destination first came out, Schindler, to their credit, there's a whole bunch of Swire property buildings right around, I think it's Quarry Bay, MRT station. And they were all 4-car groups, and you walk in there before the modernization, and literally in the morning, people were out the corridor and all the way down the hall just waiting to get in the corridors. And even though they're extremely under-elevated buildings, by putting on destination dispatch, they at least eliminated the queuing out in the lobby, so now they were just waiting for the cars. So I think those were only 10-floor segments in the low-rise. So probably an 8-10 story building.
Can I take a whack at that one?
Yeah.
If this works. Is it on? Okay. It would depend on the building, obviously. We've done buildings less than 10 floors. And it's important to understand that the low-rise, even in a building like the Shanghai Tower, is basically, I didn't see how many floors it is, probably something like, well, in fact, there's 2 low-rise groups, as I recall, so it can be fairly short. A low-rise group, even in a 100-story building, is not a whole lot different than a 12-story building. The reason for doing destination is the key. So where we've done it in short buildings with not very many elevators is when there's floor asymmetry. There's elevators don't all go to the same floors, and we're just getting it for the interface to capture where are you going so we can get you the right elevator. I would say that I'm pretty comfortable in doing it in short buildings. We've got this project at Berkeley. I think it's 8 stops. It's a 7-stop car and an 8-stop car, and I'm sure we're not going to have any problems with it. We've done a number of small groups, and the only issue really is whether you're going to suffer with making that early commitment to the car. And some discussion we're having within the industry, and I think that Jim alluded to it, is how to effectively do reassignments. But Schindler had an elevator about 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, the Schindler Mobile, that was an elevator designed to be a single car, and it was basically destination. At that point, it really doesn't matter where you put in your demand, whether it's in the car or in the hall. So I think that destination is not going to be perceived in the future as just something for tall buildings, but it's going to trickle down into a lot of other buildings.
One more question here in the first row, please.
Sorry, this is not a question. This is just a little protest on behalf of all the elevator companies, I would say.
Thank you.
Europe absolutely uses bypass. It is absolutely wrong to say that they don't use bypass. We do use bypass. And we are actually doing other things with bypass still, which you will see in the future. There is absolutely bypass.
Do we have another question in the room? Last one. Good, thank you.
Hi, it's Calvin Fu from Hong Kong. And regarding the destination dispatch control, I would like to know about the lift traffic analysis. Because for the numbers of required lift car, is it feasible to demonstrate the lift performance in terms of the 5 minutes handling capacity and the intervals when using the destination dispatch control?
The metrics do change. So not really, but that's the language that we as an industry have adopted, and that's the language that people are used to understanding. And I'll just explain very quickly what it is. The handling capacity metric obviously still works, but measuring just interval, which is commensurate or proportionate to waiting time, doesn't really address the whole time to destination question. That's number one. And in a conventional elevatoring scenario, done sort of the standard, I don't know how familiar you are with that. You might be quite familiar, done according to the traditional industry way, following George Strait-Koch, and according to how things were done in New York many years ago. It's just an arithmetic calculation. The better way to do it is with a simulation, and that has a lot to do with how the traffic, the variance of the traffic and what the peaks are and the duration of that peak, and you really have to do that through a simulation. But I will tell you from practical experience that making it very complicated for the customer in terms of the probabilities and the different scenarios and all the different ways you can simulate this, you'll often drown in complexity with the data. And I found it's actually very helpful to be able to just go to real buildings and just say, this is what we have, this is how many cars we have, this is the number of square feet, here's a comparable building to yours and it works. How is your building different? And just talk with them in a very realistic way. So I do still talk with customers about waiting time and interval and time to destination. And what we need as an industry, and people like Johannes can help with this, is how do you define the incoming traffic? And what is the right metric for time to destination, waiting time plus travel time? So I think there's a lot of work to do in that area.
So I would like to also know about, if that's the case, how can we talk to the client in case we using the destination dispatch control? Yeah. How will be the improvement, the average percentage for the 5-minute handling capacity, etc.?
Are you talking about existing building or brand new building?
New building.
That's a good question because, again, I think the U.S. guys that originally did the analysis have gotten old and quit the industry. So now by default, it's gone to our brothers in UK. They're trying to come up with ratings for office buildings. And, you know, the criticism I have of them is they think that destination dispatch is going to change the arrival into the building. You got to remember we're dealing with people and how they arrive into the building in the morning. So just because you have the great, you could put 50 elevators there, and if you got 50 elevators, the waiting time is going to be 0. If you put 3 elevators, they might wait 60 seconds. So it's all based on the number of platforms you have and how people arrive into the building. And that's my statement originally, was people think we have 12 to 15% handling capacity requirement for the morning up peak. I've never measured that in my life. We did studies in the World Trade Center towers for the modernization, and there were supposed to be 25,000 people in each tower, but they're really running about 12.5 to 13,000. And even then, based on the PATH trains coming in underneath the building and counting the people as they came into the building, we measured 6% for 5 minutes. You know, how do you justify then saying, oh, we got to have 15% or 20%? You don't. And so the problem you have with a lot of these academicians that write the books that a lot of people are relying on, they say, Well, if 12% is good, 15% is better. And if 15% is better, let's do 20%. Well, that doesn't buy you anything, because if the people are not arriving at 15 or 20% requirement, you might as well use 12. The only thing you have to worry about is sizing the cars, and that's where this 12% would size the car. If I relied on 6 to 8%, the cars would be too small if I based it on the morning up peak. So the 12% is typically derived from, say, a 6 to 8% handling capacity and use 1.5 the amount to come up with a car size. So that's why we only have basically 3 car sizes in an office building. We have 1350, 1600, and 1800. The problem you have with the British code also is they go by Renard series to determine what the capacities are. So if you look at the UK capacities, they go 1250, 1600, and then 2000. There is no 1800. Now they've come back and they're starting to use 1800. But I'm not going to put a 2,000 kilogram car in an office building. It's crazy. That's over-design. So you have to be very careful. Before we even start any analysis, we always set the design criteria, and that's the key. So you can do simulations that show, yes, you can meet that, or no, you don't meet it. It was interesting, before we had destination dispatch, we never used to be concerned about time to destination. That wasn't even a consideration unless you had a round trip time over 180 seconds, which means you had probably 60 seconds en route or longer, and people start complaining about that. But if I limit myself to 15 floor segments, I'm probably not going to have a time to destination. So the beauty of destination dispatch, I wait a little bit longer in the lobby for the car to come, but once I get in, I get there a lot quicker because I'm using a lot less stops. So are you talking about using software like Elevate? Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
I'll try to just be quick about it. I put the animation up there, and I should have explained, that was a little bit of what that was trying to get at. That animation was actually created by counting every single passenger. Every dot represented a real person. We actually counted every single person that came into that building during a 1-hour peak period. What we assume about how traffic happens in a building and what that peak is incredibly important. The tenancy of the building, the dispatcher of the elevator company, how the destination system is set up, and I would say, based very strongly on my own experience, that security plays into people movement in a very deep way, and it can have big effects. And if you combine passengers together and do some things, you might have inefficiencies, but in general, taking potential trips out of a system by overlaying security over it so people can only travel between their own floors but not to other tenants' floors takes traffic out of the system. So there's a number there, and it's very hard to sit here and say what that number is of percentage improvement, but it can be a big number. I mean, it can be a nice, big 2-digit number, 20%, 30%. Just everything has to fall into place and has to be designed like that. I've yet to be bitten. I'm cautioned on this all the time about having the destination project that didn't work well. We seem to, even if it didn't get us the improvement, it got us other interface advantages. And this is with experience with the most demanding owners in the US on existing buildings with tenants in the building. So if we're going to get negative feedback, we're definitely going to hear it. So there's a number there. It really depends on the specifics. Probably the biggest single thing for the elevator industry to do is to actually figure out the metrics and come up with standards. Because right now we're confusing everybody and we're all over the place in terms of how we're doing a lot of this stuff.
So I thank our 3 keynote speakers this afternoon and would like to invite everybody to the coffee break outside that is kindly sponsored by Mitsubishi Elevator. Thank you very much for your participation.